Dinesh here.
Yeah, Dinesh.
I just sent an email regarding to the class timings. I am in West Coast time zone, and
Dinesh,
in the
that's what
next.
I said. Dinesh, 1 second. The same I just replied. Somebody was raising that point. I replied, we'll discuss not now, later. Okay. What are the how
Okay,
we
sure.
just planned and the same way we are executing. No changes in between. Yeah. We'll discuss on that if you have issue. Fine. So far we completed basic setups which are required within the inventory application. Now we'll go ahead and talk about various transactions which we can perform and what are the other features which are available within the inventory. So when we talk about inventory, primarily what we do is we do planning based on the demand and the supply requirements. That could be like we need like to use internally or for manufacturing process and the supply demands. Based on that we have to plan. So based on the planning we have to transact. So we plan to purchase, we'll just purchase, and again there could be many other stock item related transactions which we perform as a part of inventory. And when we are dealing with items, we have to set a controls on those items. We have to implement certain controls, and finally we have to conduct sort of verification. So primarily these are the areas where we focus when we are dealing with the inventory. Fine. So when we talk about inventory management, so we plan, we transact, and we control, and we do the verification on the stock which we are going to manage within the inventory. Everything, whatever the planning or performing the transactions and setting the controls and verification, everything we do against the items. First we'll see what is the basic inventory structure. Okay, what is the basic inventory structure? So here I taken the small uh, image. So when I talk about inventory structure, so this is how this sort of hierarchy we could see to to maintain the items in very organized way within the warehouse. So we have inventory organization. Within that inventory, we can have one or multiple sub inventories. Here in this, you could see two sub inventories we have, and again within the sub inventory, we can have a further partition called as locators. Okay, here you could say two locators within one sub inventory. We have two. How many we require, we can create. Still, you want to have a further segregation within the locators. You can have a rack, bin, and different logical segregations you can maintain based on how you are going to manage your stock, how you are going to arrange that stock within that inventory and with those segregations. When we talk about this structure and the hierarchy of these inventory, sub-inventories, locators, stock locate, say like racks, bins, etc., whatever the segregation we do, out of all these, two levels are mandatory. Inventory organization we have to define. Within the inventory organization, sub-inventory is mandatory. The locators and further classifications or segregations, what we have, those completely optional. Only depending on business requirement we have to define. So when you talk about sub inventories, the sub inventory and inventories are mandatory. When organization have inventories, those will create in the system, and we know how many inventory organizations client has, warehouses client has. Those many we have to create in the system. Along with those, we have to create one more additional inventory organization within the system, which we call as item master, which is a virtual inventory. If business has 10 warehouses, we create 10 inventory organizations. Along with that, we have to create one more additional inventory organization, which we call as virtual inventory. Already we created in the system item master organization for item definition purpose, and we created items and we associated with the actual inventories. When you talk about sub inventory may be part of the warehouse, may not be part of the warehouse as per real business, but in the system process it is mandatory. Without sub inventory we cannot receive the material into any inventory. So that's how the our product is designed and developed. If you are going to use Oracle inventory application, sub inventory is mandatory. If client doesn't have any sub inventory within the inventory organization, at least dummy sub inventory we have to create. That's how we can manage the receiving process. If they have sub inventories, how many they have, accordingly we create and will perform the transactions. So this is a simple inventory structure. And when you talk about the transactions which you perform within this inventory, so that's what here I mentioned, transact. First we'll see what are the basic transactions we can perform within the inventory. Okay, say inventory transactions. Okay, when I talk about inventory transactions, you have many transactions depending based on the purpose and I mean how we have to deal. We can just perform those transactions. Fine. The very primary transaction within the inventory is receipt. Okay, the receipt which would be resulted based on the procurement. If there is any demand in the organization, if there is some shortage, or if you want to get some material into inventory, so we create receipt. Prior to that we raise a requisition. Okay, there is standard process which we follow. Simply we can say we'll place purchase order. Against the purchase order we get the material. So against that material what we get into our organization to track and to record in the system, we create the receipt. Okay, the receipt, the material whatever we receive into inventory, to record that we create the receipt, or call it as GRN, goods receipt note. Okay, goods receipt note. So that means when you have a purchase order, against that purchase order, if you are going to receive the material into inventory organization, we create the receipt. There could be cases where you may not have purchase order. Still you may get the material into inventory. There could be business scenario which demands you have to update the on hand quantity availability. The best example for that is when you do the implementation. We have to straight away update the on hand quantity within the system based on the legacy system data. At the time of implementation, whatever we record, whatever the stock quantities we maintain within the system against the items, those need to be updated directly in the inventory application. So in that case you cannot have PO back. Means to create the receipt in the application, you may not have a PO information, since directly you are going to update the on hand quantity. If that is the case, we perform the inventory transaction called as miscellaneous receipt. That receipt, but it is not a regular receipt which we record in the system. So depending on scenario, business cases, we record the receipt that we call as miscellaneous receipt. Okay, miscellaneous receipt. Miscellaneous receipt means we receive the material into inventory, but not by following the standard process how we get the material into inventory organization. Fine. That we call as miscellaneous receipt. Let me write it. Miscellaneous receipt. Fine. Here, this receipt we create against the purchase order. When you talk about miscellaneous receipt, maybe this we ideally we create at the time of implementation. Okay, at the time of implementation, okay, we may create. So not only that, that you can just this is one of the example I'm taking at the time of implementation to directly update the on hand quantity. This is what we do. Okay, so that means here miscellaneous receipt, the situation is there won't be any purchase order requirement, there won't be any documentation proof you have to maintain. Okay, in that case, directly to update the on hand quantity, we do this. And that could be like if you want to get the material into inventory without purchase order, and if at the time of implementation directly if you want to update the on hand quantity, we can record the miscellaneous receipt. Okay, and other topic is other transaction is ideally when we are doing the sales activities. Okay, we do the pick release and the ship confirmation where we can move the material from inventory to customer requested location. So that anyway, just that those are separate tasks which we perform as a flow. So those also you can consider picking and the shipping. These are part of inventory activities. It's all about. So however you are receiving the material into inventory against the PO in the same way, when you have a sales order against the sales order, we can perform. So based on the sales order, how much quantity we have to deliver to the customer, based on that we can pick material from the respective inventory or say sub inventory, and we do the shipping. So this is also part of inventory transactions. And if there is no sales order which we are getting from the customer, still if you want to move the material from the inventory, okay, still if you want to deliver the material, so in that case we create the miscellaneous issue. Ideally if you have a sales order, the documentation support, if there is some sales order against that, we ideally do the picking and the shipping, will deliver the material to the customer. Even if there is no sales order, still if you want to issue the material, we create the miscellaneous issue. This is not a standard process to deliver the material to work on the outflow of the items from the inventory. So that is the reason we are calling as it's a miscellaneous. The standard process is there will be order from the customers, then we'll issue the material to the customers. That is a standard process. But the issue which we are performing without document support, we perform the issue. So in which scenarios we may perform this kind of miscellaneous issues? Take example. If you take a simple example, projects. Say you have a material within the inventory, and you are running, say, capital project as a part of Oracle projects. The same projects in Fusion we are calling as PPM, project portfolio management. So we know within the projects we can deal different type of projects: indirect projects, capital projects, contract projects. When I talk about capital projects, it's all about construction. you need some material which is available within our warehouse. So in that case, so there won't be any other transactions. Directly you have to issue the material from inventory to your project. Okay, your project, or else maybe specific location. Okay, maybe for specific location you have to deliver the material. So these cases we can take as a miscellaneous issue. That means there won't be any supporting document as a miscellaneous activity, not as a regular activity. If you want to issue the material, we can use the miscellaneous issue concept. Okay, we can use the miscellaneous issue concept. And within the inventory, say, yep, sub inventory transfers. Okay, sub inventory transfers. Here if you take this example, within this inventory organization, there may be need of moving the material from one sub inventory to other sub inventory. Okay, one sub inventory to other sub inventory within the organization. So if that, in that scenarios, we use the sub inventory transfers concept to move the material from one sub inventory to another sub inventory. And along with this, now it's all about let me write it, moving material. That, I mean, transaction itself talks about the meaning of what activity we do. So moving material from one sub inventory to another sub inventory. Okay, that's all about sub inventory transfer. So it's all about transferring the material from one sub inventory to another sub inventory to manage their stock availability. Is how there could be any reason, like there could be a number of reasons to do that. Okay. And again, similar to this, moving the material from one sub inventory to another sub inventory, when you have a multiple inventory organization, there may be need where you have to move the material from one inventory organization to another inventory organization, which we call as inter-organization transfers. Okay, inter-organization transfers. Okay, so when you are working on these concepts, we'll discuss more detail level. Now I'm just trying to give very high level the purpose of the transactions, in which business scenario we do it. When you are working on this, there is a lot of other information which you have to understand, what setups required, what scenarios we can handle, and all. Will talk on that when you are dealing with the specific concepts, and we'll proceed. Okay, but now just to get some high level understanding. So inter-organization transfers means, so by using this inter-organization transfers functionality, we can move the material between the inventory organization. Okay, here we can take the same statement. So it's all about moving material from one inventory, say one inventory organization, to other inventory organization. So moving material from one sub inventory to another sub inventory, we are calling as sub inventory transfers within our organization. And moving the material from one inventory organization to another inventory organization, we are calling as inter-organization transfers. Inter-organization transfers. And in the same way, we can what I could say, like to move the material, we can raise a request within the organization. Okay, within our inventory, we can just raise a request. So that just for item movement purpose, just to move the material. Here, these are whatever we are discussing. Sub-inventory transfer directly, just you perform, just moving the material. But if you want to have a kind of process where you'll have a activity called as uh, placing the request to move the material. So those we can perform as a separate transaction. Those we can call. Ideally, we can call. There are different cases scenarios where we do that activity. That simply you can call as a movement request. When you talk about movement request, so you may just deal with the concept called as requisition movement request. Okay, requisition movement request, and we have another movement request called as replenishment movement request. Movement request, and along with this, we have for manufacturing purpose, yeah, shop floor, shop floor movement request. Okay, this all to move the material or to pick the material. Okay, just we'll put a request, we'll raise a request, we'll create a request on requirement of movement. Okay, here what is the difference between these requisition movement request and replenishment movement request and shop floor movement request? So when I talk about these different movement requests, in case of requisition movement request, what we do in what is the scenario, we just go with the this request. And one more point here, since we are talking about this intermediate step called as request and all, even when you talk about intra-organization transfers also, that could be direct intra-organization transfer or in-transit intra-organization transfer. Okay, where there will be intermediate step in between moving the material from one, I mean to say, source inventory to destination inventory. Those we'll discuss more detail level. Okay, here when I talk about movement request, it's all about so putting a request to move the material, okay, within the inventory organization. When you talk about requisition movement request, what we do, so it's all about instruction, instruction to move the material. So this process basically like the request what we put, ideally we just put a request as a manual process. System is not going to create based on the prior configuration. Okay, so maybe you want to just put a request, or else it could be issuing the material also. Normally that requisition movement request, by requesting to move the material from material wherever we require, just we can create the requisition movement request. And even to issue the material also, for issuing purpose also, you can just raise the requisition movement request. And when I talk about replenishment movement request, it's a based on when we are working on, we have a planning methods, we have a minimax planning and all. In that minimax planning, the system will create. And here it's all about the movement request item, requesting item movement in case of shop floor. Means when you are doing the manufacturing, what are the items we required for that manufacturing process, what are the items we require, just we can put a request. It's all about item movement purpose we use. So instead of discussing now these points directly, we'll do in the system. Okay, it's slight difference here. It's a very manual process. Directly you can put a movement request to move the items. Here as a part of minimax planning, we'll discuss about minimax planning. Once we discuss all these concepts, we'll be doing working on the system. At that time, before we see in the system, again we'll pick the same topic and we'll address about the purpose, and immediately we'll see in the system. So these all are movement requests. So it's a manual process and it's based on minimax planning execution. This would get generated, and again shop floor when there is some item requirement within the manufacturing process, there could be movement request to get the material into shop floor. Okay, so that's how these are the different movement requests we use. So apart from this, we may perform yep, we call just consignment inventory. That's another kind of transaction which we perform within inventory. So consignment inventory transactions. So here what we do is consignment inventory means, so ideally we maintain inventory for the items which we source from the supplier. If not from supplier, maybe the items, if you have a practice of manufacturing the items, so from that manufacturing source we can get the material into inventory. So instead of these two, our supplier may facilitate the stock availability within our locations. That concept we call as consignment inventory. You can see nowadays, like simple example, if you go to any shopping complex, okay, any kind of shopping malls, you could see like a similar concept, consignment inventory. In that kind of shopping mall, you could find different brands where that the company itself, they'll maintain the stock within that shopping mall, and instead of these people buy and get that stock over there. That means for supplier benefit or for our convenience, the stock will be maintained within our location. So based on our need, we can take which is spot availability whenever we use consume, or it could be case where we get supplier inventory in our location, okay, without purchasing, that we may use and we may pay to the supplier, or else that could be that may be available with us for sales purpose in our location. Okay, so how to perform these transactions, how to create that consignment inventory and all, we'll just see in the system just to understand. So these are the very primary inventory transactions. We'll just add if something is missing, some miscellaneous the transactions which you can record within the inventory. We'll just go through it. Okay, so these are the very primary inventory transactions which you can perform when you console this transact. Okay, and what about planning? When we are dealing with a inventory, so we have to plan. We have to plan for the item.
Lakshman,
Yeah.
that requisition is it internal requisition? The requisition movement is an internal requisition,
Yeah,
like I see.
depending on the process. Depending on the process. Okay. Depending on the process. So basically, like it's when you say requisition movement within the organization. Yes, if you are dealing with across the different business units, okay. Yes, we'll create the internal requisition also. We'll be working on that. We'll be.
Is it move order, sir?
Sorry.
Is it move order? Move order.
Yeah, move order. Yeah, move order also we have. Yes. We'll be covering. That's what I said. Like these are very primary. Just we'll include a few other active transactions which you can perform within the inventory. Yes, move order is also one of the transaction type.
And also, Lakshman, just you mentioned planning, transact, controls, and verification. I mean, these are the 4 areas that we are going to work. I mean, transaction.
Yeah, these are the 4 areas which you could see with inventory management. Right.
Just a thought, countings.
Yeah, countings also. Cycle counting.
I mean,
Yep.
part of any these 4 are not, right? So that's what I'm just thinking.
No. Counting is a part of verification.
Verification.
Okay.
There.
Counting by performing the counting only we verify.
Okay.
If there's any issues. Let me describe those here itself then. Okay. So when you talk about say this planning, okay, or else let me write. So transact, it's nothing but transactions. Okay, it's nothing but inventory transactions. Okay, no issues. So here, as a part of this inventory transactions, what we do is we work on movement of inventory items primarily, and it's all about we work on tracking the item quantities, okay, so right, and item inflows and outflows, okay, primarily this, it's very primarily movement of inventory items. So for these reasons we just create the inventory transactions. And why we do the planning, what is the purpose of planning? By planning you can make sure that you have enough stock availability within the your inventory organization, okay, that is the purpose of planning, so that you will be able to support the demand which you are going to face from your customers, or else it may be plan of keeping in stock availability which is required as per your manufacturing, the production, as per the production which you are doing within your organization. Say, so what is the purpose of this planning? So it's all about to manage your inventory levels, stock levels, inventory levels in the sense inventory stock levels as required. In the same way, like to support sales which you are doing and for production. So if you don't plan, you may not keep required inventory stock availability within your inventory. That may result in our sales process where if there is some demand, if you don't have a proper plan to maintain the stock within the inventory, you cannot promise to the customers as you are going to supply since stock is not available. In the same way, if you are going to do the production, what are the raw material you require, if you don't properly plan and maintain, there also you'll have some shortage for the item whenever it is required. Okay, the planning to keep inventory levels as per the demand, in the same way which supports your sales and production related activities also. And controls. So what is the purpose of these controls? We'll just set a kind of controls for the stock. Simply you can say controls means it's for stock controls. So these will enable item tracking. Okay, so item tracking, we'll discuss what are the different controls we have, lot, serial, all these controls. So basically it's we'll implement this control for the stock, the item stock which you are going to maintain. It enables tracking items. Okay, so it's just for kind of internal purpose. So for how you want to track the items for the stock, whatever you have availability, for that purpose we use the kind of controls, inventory controls we can call. And verification means to achieve that verification, what we do is we use that counting methods. Okay, so through verification what we can identify the accuracy of inventory, and when you verify you will come to know as per our system how much stock you have in the physical inventory, in the real inventory, as per as your business how much is available. You will be able to reconcile verification process, so that simply you can say you can find out inventory errors and the reasons. Okay, all you can find out. So to maintain that accuracy of the inventory and the inventory errors, we do the verification. So here, planning in the sense, this planning and all you can do by using the inventory planning methods. We have different inventory planning methods. We'll go and discuss inventory planning methods. And transact means, just I mentioned as a transact here, these are nothing but inventory transactions. Various inventory transactions you can perform. Okay, controls, the same, just we call as inventory controls. Okay, inventory controls. And verification, to perform the verification within the inventory, we have a counting methods, right? So call it as inventory counting methods. Okay, the planning methods, you can make sure that you have a good inventory levels which supports your sales activities and production activities. With inventory transaction, this is the primary. See, you may not have your planning, you may not have a planning method, you may not have inventory controls. These are not mandatory, right? Your planning methods are not mandatory, your controls, inventory controls are not mandatory, and the cycle counting methods, okay, the verification not mandatory. It's all to make sure that you are just managing inventory properly, so you can go with that. But out of that, very primary is inventory transaction. When you have inventory, definitely will maintain the stock and will perform the inventory related transaction. These are optional areas, but still for effective inventory management, definitely these are required. Fine. So this is the purpose. So verification, to just maintain the accuracy of inventory, how the real information, exact information you are maintaining within the system, with the synchronization of your business, real warehouse, and so that by doing that verification you can find out the inventory errors and you can take the action. And the adjustments and all you do all again falls under transactions. You found some errors and you just found that some stock is missing in the real warehouse, but as per your system, that is system is showing a stock is available. In that case, what we do, we'll perform the miscellaneous issue, because we have to reduce the stock with a specific reason. That falls under inventory transaction. Okay, and controls, as we discussed, just it's all about stock related controls to keep on the tracking and all with different control options. We'll see that. So what level, locator level, serial, all these controls we'll discuss and we'll be working on. Transactions means this is a core area within the inventory application. The planning, just as per demand and many other factors will consider that will define the planning methods. Accordingly, we will be getting the material into inventory organization. Okay, done. So these are the key inventory transactions. Yes, we'll be adding few more also. And planning methods, let me take this. So when we talk about planning methods, what are the different planning methods we have and which can be executed within the Fusion? So here, say min-max planning. We'll discuss what is the meaning of it. And the other one is replenishment planning method. And reorder, or say reorder point. Okay, minimax planning method and replenishment planning method and reorder. And we have Kanban and all. The Kanban and all we cannot do within the Fusion. Okay, these are the different planning methods which we can define within this Fusion applications. And same way, like let me take these other inventory controls and counting methods, and once we write here we can talk on those inventory controls. When you talk about inventory controls, what are the inventory controls we have? So when you talk about inventory controls, so we have a stock locator controls, simply we can call as locator controls, locator controls. And we have revision controls, and serial controls, and the other one is lot controls. Fine. So these are the different controls which we can set against the item, the different levels. Fine. So planning inventory transaction controls. Now verification means it's a kind of counting methods, say inventory counting methods. Okay, so inventory counting methods. What are the counting methods? We have, say, physical inventory counting, and cycle counting. The counting methods. So now we'll see minimax planning method. So it's very simple. It's very simple. For specific item, okay, we can plan. We can keep a plan. What should be the minimum quantity we have to maintain, and what could be the maximum quantity we have to keep available for the inventory. Maximum quantity we have to maintain within the inventory. It's all about optimizing the stock maintenance within the inventory, and still you'll keep that stock availability in what are the process you required. Okay, so that's all about minimax planning. It's all about we define how much minimum quantity is required and the maximum quantity we may require for so and so item, that you can define within the system by using the concept called as minimax planning method. Okay, so that's all, just here to write also the same point. Okay, what we can say, we define minimum and maximum quantity per item. Okay, so this is how just will maintain whenever system identifies. Okay, whenever system identifies so and so item, what are the minimum quantity we defined, it is going just the quantity levels as low, automatically system will trigger the requisition creation. That anyway we'll see in the system, but just to understand. So minimax planning means we have to set the minimum quantity and maximum quantity within the system. Based on that, so automatically system will raise the requisition it will create. That's how it will work. And replenishment planning method. Replenishment in the sense it's a refilling. Okay, replenishment in the sense it's all about refilling. Okay, so so what is the case we deal with this? here when you say replenishment, like it's basically we do for sub inventories level. Okay, sub inventories level. And for what is the best example for replenishment planning method? Say for example you are getting some kind of some free stock and you want to maintain within the, it is one of the counting, it comes under counting, but it's a kind of planning, like how you want to maintain that stock within the specific sub inventory, and how you want to plan, and whether that is going to be non-tracked or tracked sub inventory. So those and all points will come into the picture. It's all about counting and the creation. It will implement the solution where the system will count, and it will create the requisition for the items, whatever we need, whatever we have to place the order and all, with in case of replenishment planning method. Okay, and reorder means it's all about it's all about safety stock logic. Here what we do is the reorder point, what happens is just will find out what is a safety stock, what is a how much stock we have to maintain within the inventory. It's all about, when I talk about safety stock, uh, we plan how much inventory we have to stock, we have to maintain to support the demand and supplies within the organization. That safety stock we consider, plus the right from identifying the requirement, how much stock we need, and placing the order to the customer. Okay, and we could generally call as lead time. Okay, the lead time, the requirement time, and till we get the material from the supplier, all will consider the safety stock and the lead time consideration based on the demand duration, we call as a reorder point. Okay, reorder point means it's a primarily safety stock logic, how much stock we have to maintain within the inventory, so that you can implement by using the reorder point planning method. Okay, so the setups and with the examples and all, we'll look into that instead of discussing now and again discussing. So with this minimax planning, just you can set how much minimum quantity, maximum quantity. Whenever it goes down minimum quantity, system will raise the equation. In all these cases, it's all about identifying, setting certain targets as per the plan, and accordingly responding to go ahead and to buy the to get the material into organization. And when I talk about controls, okay, locator controls, just we have seen here locators concept. In sub inventory we can have a locators, but locators are not mandatory. The locators concept is not mandatory. If client has a requirement of maintaining the stock by segregating as a locators, we use this locator controls. Fine. So when you talk about locator controls, so in locator controls, what we do is we'll create within the sub inventory. Within the sub inventory we can create the locators, and whenever we are performing the material transactions, okay, we just make sure that we are selecting the, when you implement locator controls, it's all about the transactions which you are the material which you are receiving and the material which you are moving, all you will be selecting with the control of locator role. Will be doing, you want to take material. Ideally, if you don't have a locator, you will be selecting where you want to take that material into which is sub inventory. That's all. That would be the final destination for the item. Since we are going to maintain locator control, definitely you have to specify along with inventory, you have to specify you want to take that material into which locator. In the same way, when we are going to deliver the issue the material also, definitely you have to specify you are going to issue that material from which locator. If you don't have a locator concept, when you are receiving or when you are issuing, just you will be selecting the sub inventory. From you want to take into which sub inventory, you want to issue from which sub inventory, which is a part of inventory. That's how you will have a kind of control only sub inventory level. If you have a locator control locators, the locator level also you can implement these controls at the time of the transactions. I mean to say, like, it could be receiving or issuing the material. That is just the purpose of kind of locator control. And the other one is revision control. Okay, it's just simply to maintain the versions for the items. If you are going to have a different versions for same item, the version concept you can maintain within the revision. We'll see in the system how to maintain the versioning for the items, which we call as revision control. Revision control is nothing but maintaining the multiple versions for item. And the other one is serial control. So this is all about, we can generate the serial number for the items, and when you create the serial number for the item, the serial numbers what we create, those can be I mean based on this what I could say, like it's all about generating the tags for that item as a serial numbers. Okay, so we'll just generate the numbers for that item, and this numbering you can use for internal purpose, like to count as a part of physical inventory, or in other case you can say maybe the serial numbers you can use in the concept called as warranty. If you are going to give the warranty for item, this is a number which we use to track the item related serials in any process where warranty is kind of execution is involved. Okay, it's the simple point is we'll set the numbering for that items. Okay, we'll set the numbering for that items, what are the items we have, based on the how much kind of counts we have within the inventory. For that, the unique numbering will be assigning for the item counts. And when you talk about lot, so we'll set lot numbering. Okay, lot numbering. So when you set, however, just for when you are implementing the locator control, when you are receiving the material and when you are issuing the material, we have to address lot. Okay, with the lot only you can just lot need to be included. In the same way, when you are going to create the lot control, okay, if you are going to create the lot control, so when you are going to receive the items into inventory, or when you are going to when you are going to perform any transactions, definitely you have to include the item is belongs to which lot number. Okay, it's all about just tracking. It's all about tracking and setting some control. The item is belongs to which lot, that has to be part of that only. Again, there won't be any kind of a case once you define these controls, lot locator controls or lot controls. So items are belongs to which locator and which lot, where it has to be made. It's all about more detail level. uh, Another kind of logical segregation with that numbers, and when you talk about lot control, kind of lot number generations, and locator control means further segregation accordingly will be, since we are creating these as a separate logical segregation, accordingly the item can be managed when you are receiving or when you are moving out, when you are issuing the material. Okay, for everything we can perform in the different levels, and we'll do the setups. Before we do the setups, when you pick the specific concept, we'll discuss and we'll do the setups and we'll execute and we'll see how it works within the application. Okay, now it's all about understanding very high level. It's all about further segregations. Located already here, it's a part of the structure only. This other segregation, based on the segregation how you are going to maintain, by referring that only you have to perform the transactions. So revision means to maintain the version for the items, and same item you can have multiple versions. So serial control means number generations for the items, and lot controls is we can create the lots, and when you are performing the transaction, you have to make sure that you are doing the transaction in the respective lot specification only. And when I talk about inventory counting methods, it's all about reconciliation, we can say. Reconciliation. Physical inventory counting means, in physical inventory counting, what we do is, so what, as per physical inventory, the real inventory, we are trying to map with the system. I mean, however, you have a real inventory management that you are bringing into virtual environment, that is system. So there should not be mismatch between the system data and the real-time inventory stock. To keep proper synchronization and to make sure that very accurate information you have in the system, we perform the physical inventory counting. The physical inventory counting, what we do is, we just do the reconciliation. We compare as per system how much quantity, what are the items, and how much quantity is available within our system, that is matching, that is getting reconciled with the real inventory. The real inventory, these we have to verify. It's all about just whatever we have in the system on hand quantity, so that is very much accurate quantity or not when you compare with the your real inventory. So that process only we call as physical inventory counting. Okay, it is physical inventory counting, you may not do very often. Ideally, maybe you will plan and accordingly will be doing maybe yearly twice, thrice, or maybe yearly once. You may do this kind of physical inventory counting. If you are going to do that similar counting, okay, of that verification, reconciliation very often, that you can call as cycle counting. That means, so periodically we'll be doing, periodically we do that. So maybe like for specific items, it depends, totally depends for which item, what you have, what kind of counting you want to do. Say you have specific items, very often you should reconcile, since those may be very kind of costly items or important items, which are primary items which you are dealing in your business. So in that case, you may go with the cycle counting. It's nothing but doing the reconciliation between the system on hand quantity with the real inventory on hand quantity, which is outside of the system. Periodically we call as cycle counting. So very rarely, like maybe yearly once or twice, if you are going to do the same reconciliation, that ideally we treat as physical inventory counting. Both are similar, but it's all about time frame, time. Okay, very often if you are going to do that, we call as cycle counting, which is a periodic activity. So ideally, like the organizations may not do for all the items very periodic base, that may be like quarterly once, halfly once, or yearly once, which falls under physical inventory counting. Okay, so these are the points we have to understand very high level. And apart from that, we are dealing with inventory. Within inventory, this is structure, and these are the various inventory transactions we can perform. We'll be adding some other uh, kind of transactions, or if anything is missing in between when you are working on the inventory, we'll discuss, and we'll execute the same in the system process. So inventory transactions and the planning methods and inventory controls and the counting methods. So we'll deal with this all will deal within the inventory. When you talk about inventory, this inventory application is integrated with which other applications for data communication purpose. So the items which you have in the inventory, those would be available in the different applications without defining in the different application. The items which you have in the inventory, those are available within the inventory, means this inventory has a integration connectivity with other applications to support those application process, which application processes are connected with the inventory application. So this is the inventory integration with the other applications. There are many other applications, but just here you could see few. So we, okay, work in process, definitely we need items over there, and the cost management to define the cost for the items are required within the cost management. Oracle purchasing, yes, in purchase, as a part of purchasing, when you are performing the transactions, we require item access. Not only the item access, the transaction flow itself, the complete the tight integration inventory has with the Oracle purchasing. And there are many other application, engineering and engineering items and shipping. Definitely the item access required, and bills of material BOM. So we'll create the bills against the items only which are source of inventory, and MRP for planning, and this can be integrated with any other third-party systems also, and Oracle projects, project manufacturing, even projects also. When I talk about Oracle project management, within that, the items which are available within the inventory in the Oracle project management application will be able to access. So, and even other finance applications also has integration. Take example, order management application. Okay, I think that is not part of it. Even order management is integrated, and of course, order management, supply chain management. Even receivables application has integration with inventory application. So that means wherever this item information is required, wherever that transactions are connecting with the items, so those all applications are integrated with the inventory application to simplify the transactions within the system process. So so that's how we have all these, just to understand. And so far whatever we did in the system or whatever we discussed, any questions please?
Ashwin, what about MRP in the planning?
That we cannot take into this core inventory. Okay, that is like value chain planning and all, that is separate area to cover that MRP planning and all. Okay, still we'll be adding few more topics as a part of inventory. Since these are very primary, I just listed out and we're discussing now. So any questions, whatever we discussed so far, any questions related to inventory, please? The setups, these are the setups we did, attributes we discussed, and the file-based data import process and item creation, catalogs, categories, so inventory structure and various inventory activities, and integration, inventory integration with other applications. Any questions here, please?